Everyone, and I hope you're all doing okay with this new way of life we're experiencing. So today is about working from home, or the new word for it, remote working. I've actually talked to a very good friend of mine today, or actually over the last few days, about the kind of things that she finds helpful because she works remotely and is used to it. So I'm going to pass on some of that information for you. I'm also going to tell you how to take care of your mental health and your emotional well-being in these situations that we currently find ourselves. So with working from home, many of the things I think are fairly obvious in that we have to have a proper structure to the day. That was one of the reasons why I decided to do this video broadcast today a little bit earlier, because my normal working day, when life is normal, would be starting at 9 o'clock. So you have to make sure you get up to start your work time at the time allotted. Like if you have to go to an office, you'd have to be there by 8 or clock in. So it is important to keep the discipline when you're working from home. And for people that have perhaps been used to working in an environment where there are many people around, like these very open offices where you have call centers or separate kind of desks with various people coming and going, and there's always life. So one of the things working from home one has to get used to is the fact that there are no other human beings around, possibly, unless you actually share, of course, your living space. It's important to set up a designated work area or workspace in your home. That way you can keep your leisure time separate from your work time. So you have your workspace, and even if you've only got, say, one table where everything happens, have one end designated as your workspace and have the other end designated as your meal and leisure time space. It's not always easy if we're in limited accommodation. And ideally, if one can actually put away your home office at night, or even better still, have it in a separate room, it will help your psychological and mental health. It'll actually make it a lot easier to stick to a routine and get a routine of how we work. So it's also important to give yourself the same breaks you would if you're at work. If you normally, when you're at work, have coffee at 10 o'clock, have your coffee at 10 o'clock. Stick to your 20 minutes or whatever the allotted time is. And the same with lunch, tea time, and, and finishing work at, say, 5 o'clock. And that's it. You switch everything off. It's so important to do that, to actually not continue working into the night because you get caught into something. And that's happened a lot for people over the last few years of the advent of the internet and the fact that we can connect with anyone at any time across the world and have meetings at 3 a.m. because the people are still working in New York, for example. So be aware of that. Be mindful of your mental and physical health, your emotional health. You have to give yourself time out when you're working from home. You have to, actually say in your breaks, switch your phone off. Or it might be the contrary, that you really need to just talk to a friend. So give a friend a call, for example. One of the things that has also, of course, become more popular lately anyway with general work situations is bringing in Skype and screen sharing for meetings with people at a great distance. There's the other great network, which is Zoom. I never fully understand how to work that, but I'm learning. And sometimes I receive calls from people via Zoom. And that is a very useful and helpful piece of technology. And what I wonder, and something for you to think about, is I wonder if through this experience of enforced isolation and remote working, whether we are going to change our habits long term and recognize that all this dashing around the world, jumping on a plane to go to a meeting in New Zealand for 3 days is not only very expensive, it's increasing the carbon footprint. It's also not good for that employee or boss on his mental and physical health. This constant changing of time zones. And I feel it would be very helpful for all businesses to really learn something from this time of isolation and recognize that it's just as effective to have collective meetings by Zoom or Skype or other methods which are around, I've no doubt. So it would be very nice to think that maybe a lot of our habits will change. I'm noticing one thing for me is I'm becoming actually more self-disciplined. And even though I'm used to working from home, I've not ever been that disciplined with it. And it's really teaching me something that I have to actually take that self-care right home to me. So there's a lot to be learned from this. The other thing that I've really noticed is how, with the isolation, just going back to what I was talking about yesterday, how at times my thinking will get distorted and unrealistic because I'm not having that interpersonal communication. So thoughts get caught in the mind and I start ruminating or overthinking. And it fascinates me that with all my understanding and awareness of psychology, psychotherapy, CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, and many other modalities that I have learned over the years, that still that human part of me comes out and is caught into the very things that are not good for us. And as I've mentioned before, the more we get stressed, if we are overthinking, ruminating, experiencing the overwhelm, it produces more not helpful to our immune system, like, for example, cortisol and adrenaline. I'm not a doctor or a microbiologist or a scientist, but I do know what I've learned from reading and being told by others. So also give yourself time off. It's so important to, if you are allowed out for a daily walk in whatever area of the world you're in during this confinement, do that and really connect with the earth and our planet, because our planet's got a really big message for us with all of this. And I think there's going to be some enormous shifts in people's attitudes. I hope, anyway, I really hope. Certainly a lot of people I speak to currently are expressing the fact that they are seeing the bigger picture and recognizing the message that perhaps our lovely planet Earth is giving us. So I think it would be helpful if our electronic habits change, so that we actually learn to discipline ourselves more. There's this sort of a thing that's been going around Facebook about, all we've ever wanted to do is stay in and be on our iPads or our iPhones or tablets or whatever. And now the governments are saying, stay in, sit down, do that. We're all going, no, but I want to be outside, which I really find really amusing. And it's, it's like, as human beings, that's what we do. We have to go to the opposite. We have to do what we're not being told to do. But take advantage of the times we can go out. Here yesterday in Gozo, the weather was appalling. It was so cold. It still is cold, hence me being all wrapped up. And I really wanted to go outside, but it was really, really not very nice. Today looks a little bit better, so hopefully I can get out for some fresh air later. Now, the other thing I've noticed from working from home and this isolation, so it's really carrying on from yesterday, is the fact that we notice that our friend circle may change. Just allow that. New friends will come in. Some will maybe become more remote in many ways, because we're all human beings. We're all dealing with this situation in the way only we know how to. I said the other day about the criticism and the judgments we constantly get into, and I'm aware I do it myself. And I know it is not helpful. I know it's not helpful for me, for my inner calm and my peace of mind. And we have to remember that everybody who is actually in charge, the health workers, the nurses, the doctors, the politicians, the government leaders, whoever they may be, still basically they're human. And we've all been caught on the hop, in a sense, with this. And they too have to adapt to it. So, of course, they'll make mistakes and say things that perhaps we think is not helpful. But what I want to say is show them some empathy and compassion. I'm sure they're doing the best they can with what they've got to work with. I can hear some of you saying, sort of things about conspiracy theories, but I think it's really dangerous at this point to get into anything like that, because we have to deal with the reality of what's happening now. Find ways to manage it emotionally. So this brings me on to what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, and it'll be back to its normal time of 10 o'clock. I'm going to talk more about CBT. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it is really, really important for your mental health to become more aware of when your thinking gets distorted and you get into overwhelm. And I have some tools that I can share with you. I can post the whole list of some of these distorted ways of thinking on my page, so that if you want to download them and actually look at them at your leisure, it's really helpful, because the more you can be aware of your distorted thoughts, the more you will find yourself managing the anxieties and the difficulties with working at home, being isolated, even if you're just at leisure at home and working remotely. So I'm going to finish now for today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your lovely, lovely, kind comments. I'm getting some really encouraging comments, and that helps me as well, because also the comments you're giving me about feedback about what I could include, what you find helpful, what maybe is not so helpful, are also really helpful for me. So bless you all. I wish you well. Have a mindful, good day. Stay in the present. And I'll see you tomorrow with more CBT tips on how to cope with anxiety. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.